This week's intro comes with an apology. I am struggling with the audio side of things. I keep trying to get it right, and every time I think I've got it right, something goes wrong again. So that's my bad, y'all. If there's a song for this week, it definitely had to be Merle Haggard, Branded Man. Jump inside and let's hang out with Papaw. Welcome to the Wrecking Yard. I'm Jerry Wayne Longmire, and y'all are presumably still y'all. All are welcome in the Church of Internal Combustion. Just show up with an open heart. We're deep diving today, man. Yeah. I feel compelled to tell y'all at least the stories I know about the origins of the Wrecking Yard and the patriarch behind it all. I keep mentioning this magical place from my childhood, but I really want to paint a picture from my perspective of Papaw Clark and his sprawling collection of oddities. And before we dive in, though, we do have a new premier sponsor bringing you the Wrecking Yard podcast today. We're really excited about it. I guess I'm going to show the comic up here, but this is Jack Slavinka has reached out to us. He's a comic book artist, and he wants to give away some of his comics. He's doing so because he's hoping to get enough followers and a big enough email list to do a crowdfunding campaign for more of his books. His comics are called Track Tales. I've only read 2 of them. Really cool. It's about dad and son working on cars and stuff. It's like Calvin and Hobbes meets Garage, meets Gasoline Alley. It's give and take. There's some fun car stuff in it. I like the art. And he's going to do a giveaway, and you'll get 2 full stories, the Thunder Valley Tune-Up and Sweet Daydreams. And as a part of the giveaway, you'll get a sneak preview on 3 more stories he's in the middle of working on right now. Truck Class 96, Mr. Mustache, and Rogues Gallery. And I love any kind of art, especially, I'm a comic book kid. So I love that stuff. If you got a comic book that's going to get kids talking about cars, sign me the hell up. I'm right on board with that. And I'll post the link and everything but if you want to be included in the giveaway, all you need to do is email your address to jacksavvynews@gmail.com, and I'll put a link up there, and I'll put a link in the chat for you guys. And you can follow him at HappyJackSavinka5560. He may even be in the chat right now chatting with us. He is a frequent visitor here on the Wrecking Yard. So, very cool. New premier sponsor. And we still have our regular sponsor as well, also with the Everyone Racers podcast this week. They're going to chat with Mental about his weekend at High Plains Raceway in Colorado, and then the gang does a virtual track walk at the National Corvette Museum course. And I think Mental's racing there this weekend too. Anyways, tune in, check them out. If you're into amateur racing, you're going to love what these guys are about. And I told you in November, I get to go hang out with them at the 24 Hours of Lemons race, and we're going to have us a good ass time. Boom. Knock the piss out of them sponsors. Done. Donezo. I like this new format. We're going to keep going with it. Also, I just realized I forgot to select any comments to talk about at the end. So it's been a week, bros, and broettes, whatever. People, it's been a week. I got me a little whiskey and water in a thermos right now. It's a Friday night, about 7 o'clock in the p.m., and a balmy 90 degrees according to Papa Longmire's shop thermometer. Not too bad, though, because I got my little air conditioner just blowing cold air right up my shorts. And as long as little Jerry's all right, everybody else is okay. This is all going to be about Papaw Clark and me. This is me from the ages of like 8 to about 12, maybe 14, somewhere in that area. Now, when I was 9 or 10, we moved to Houston, and or a little older than that, we moved to Houston. But then I would still come and just spend all the summers in the Wrecking Yard all summer, hanging out at Papa and Granny's house. Papaw Clark, I chose that step band that I used in the picture to represent him because he had so many. He loved cars, man. He loved automobiles. and there's at least 40 that I can think of that I can associate with him at any given time, and any number of motorcycles. He had a BMW 1200 motorbike. I think he was in love with, boy. You'd see him coming down the road, welder hat on backwards, getting it. But I chose that step van because I always thought he seemed the happiest in it. He's a junker, man. And when he had that step van, you look in the back of, you never know what might be a go-kart and bamboo tree cut-offs, might be a couple of engines out of something, might be a old piece of equipment out of a machine shop, hell, there might be a wood planer back there. You just never knew what he was going to have. And if he started driving that thing, that became his daily driver. Now his was it was a '66, but it was an old Frito-Lay route truck. His had a little 283 in it, I think. It was either 283 or 6 on. I don't remember. It wasn't fast. I don't think that thing went above 50, 55 mile an hour. But they had spray painted it blue with some house paint. It was kind of dark blue. And it was like some old house paint, some Flying Dutchman or something that they popped in the air sprayer and sprayed the blasted thing down, He didn't care what it looked like. Just get it all one color so it didn't say Frito-Lay. Said he's tired of people trying to buy chips off of him. And he'd just drive that thing down the road. I'd ride with him. He built a seat. He took a seat out of another old van and mounted it over there so I'd have a place to sit, because those vans, they didn't have a seat over there, most of them. It was just like a little standing area. So he made me a seat where I could buckle up, I could ride with him, and we'd go junking, man. People back, a lot of his friends just called me Shadow, because I was right up under him all the time, We were just real close. He used to say, "You Papaw's boy?" "Oh yeah, I'm Papaw's boy." I'd say, "Hell yeah, back." "You Papaw's boy?" He'd ask me that coming out. "You Papaw's boy?" "Yes, sir." I'd sit in his lap. We'd watch MASH every night. He's ultimately a flawed man, and I'm not going to go too deep in that, but he done some bad things. And he wasn't faithful to his wife. And, probably wasn't the greatest dad most of the time. Was abusive at times. And, things were different back then. I'm not making excuses for him, but I'm just saying I'm going to tell you, I'm going to gild the lily here while I'm talking about him. But understand he's a very real, very flawed man, and not everybody feels the way I feel about him, Some of them feel better about him than I do, and some of them feel worse about him than I do. I can tell you when he died, I think about half the people showed up just to make sure he's gone. He was a lot. He was a lot to deal with. I remember the way that we called it a bread truck, but I remember the way that old bread truck used to sound, made it loud, just didn't have nothing for exhaust, just clanging or rattling down the road. And you was always excited when Papa, they had a little dirt road, their house, and up in the driveway. And you're always excited when you heard that truck bouncing down the dirt road, because you never know what Papa was going to come home with. Like I said, it might be a mini bike, might be any number of things. Papa been out junking. Ain't no telling what he found. But let's go back. I don't remember how old he was. I don't remember where he's born. That's not true. I think he's from Center, Texas. I think he's born in Center, Texas. And you're going to find out there's a reason I don't know a whole lot about him. But he was born somewhere in Center, Texas. And his daddy's name was Wiley, like Wiley Coyote. That was Papaw Wiley, my great-grandfather. And I hung out with Papaw Wiley as a kid. My mom and him were very close, and he just adored me. So I was the first grandchild. So there's lots of pictures of me and him hanging out together. He had this big old German Shepherd. And Papaw Wiley lived in a little house right out there in the junkyard. Little one room home. Now, Papaw Wiley, when he was younger, he had a bunch of junkyards. He had about 2 or 3 junkyards. And I don't know why he did it. he was married to a woman named Alma, and she was an old barfly. She was just old bar drunk, you know, scheming old heifer type barfly. You know, they just all they did was drink and fight and curse and argue, and they finally split up with good reason. And I think my papa only had a sister. But what happens, his sister married a fellow named George, who was in the junkyard business, and for whatever reason, Papa Wiley gave all his junkyards to George. If you can imagine, that pissed Papaw Clark off. Papaw Clark's full name is Bobby Eugene Clark. Bobby Eugene Clark was a tough man. He could be a hard man. He wasn't necessarily all that tall. I think he's only about 5'9", 5 my height, but broad. Had a set of shoulders on him like an axe handle, and just as rounded and full of thump you in the dirt muscle. Had a belly, big old belly. He married my granny. I can't imagine it. My granny was a runaround. All right, I'm just gonna tell you this. We're gonna get into this part of it right now. My granny was a runaround girl. All right, she wasn't no good girl. Her mother died giving birth to her, and she was the youngest. Because mom died, and her dad was basically, his name was Andrew McBride, and Andrew McBride was basically a wildcatter and a con man and one of these get rich quick scheme type dudes. And he drug his family. They lived in Beverly Hills for a little while when she was a kid, and he would do tours on the side, and then he would sell oil wells that weren't his. And he's just you're just one of them type of dudes, right? But because my granny's mother died and she was very young, I don't know if it was birth. I think maybe she was like 2 years old when she died. That's Edis. Andrew and Edis are buried right there in Kilgore, kind of over there by that old that old petroleum wax plant I was telling y'all, Trinolite or whatever the hell that was. Anyways, when Granny was a kid, if she didn't get what she wanted, she'd start crying about her mom, and everybody would give it to her. She told me about this one time when I was a kid, and she said that's all she had to do. And anytime anybody gave her too much grief, she'd just start crying about her mom, and they'd let her get away. And all she had was all these older brothers and sisters, and they couldn't control her. And I've talked to her brother. I knew her brother Lonnie, and I knew her brother Charles. I knew her brother Ed. And I knew her sister. I called her my nanny. I called her Nanny, but her name was Marilyn. She's my cousin Ricky's, Tony's grandmother, and Gina's grandmother. Her own brother told me that they couldn't keep her off fence posts when she was sick. She was a mess, man. This old gal was looking for love in all the places and giving it to whoever wanted it. She liked music and good times and men. And she liked men a whole lot. A whole lot. In fact, she liked men so much that when my papaw met her and they started, going together and decided that he was getting ready to head out for the army, and they decided to go ahead and get hitched. Turned out Granny was already pregnant with my mom. And this is why I don't know a lot. Even though I was raised with him as my grandfather, he ain't my grandfather. There's another dude. Well, that guy died, and I knew that guy too. I met that guy a couple times, and he knew who he was. But Granny had been running around with a married man, got knocked up by a married man in Kilgore there named Raymond Harris. And I know some of the Harris family. I hung out with some of them growing up. And those ones I told you, they thought I didn't know we were family, but I actually already knew a lot about this. I was about 14 or 15 when I found all this out because I read a letter I wasn't supposed to. But and Raymond Raymond, I don't know if he was a good man or a bad man. Honestly, I don't know anything about him. I mean, he didn't take care of his responsibilities, so in my eyes, it makes him a piece of shit. Uh, you don't put a child out there and not take care of your child. What are you? Like that's garbage behavior. I got no use for it. So I don't think very much of him. When Papa met Granny, she was pregnant with Mama, and he found out and he married her anyways. Then he run off to the army. He actually he served in the same unit with Elvis Presley over in Germany. He hated him. Thought Elvis was just a pretentious dick. Didn't like him at all. It didn't like that they didn't make him work as hard as they made the rest of them work. He was tough though. This ain't it. Here's the messed up thing. Like Papa comes back from the army, and Gray's knocked up again. Papa's like, "Crap, man, I need to go get a vasectomy." So he goes down and he sees this doctor in Kilgore, Dr. Jack. And a long time, everybody thought Granny and Dr. Jack was running around because they were real friendly with each other. And Dr. Jack does a little snip and Papaw. Granny's second child is born. And newsflash, that one ain't his neither, but I don't think he knew. No. They got together and he was a run around too. You know, I ain't painting him as no innocent angel in this. They went ahead on. It wasn't maybe another year or two. Granny got knocked up again. Son of a bitch, boy. So they run down there to Dr. Jack. Well, you know, I had this vasectomy and my lady's pregnant again. Dr. Jack says, well, sometimes it don't take. Snip again. Done having kids, Bobby? Yeah. Snip again. And my granny's third child was born. That's my Aunt Janet. I don't know if any of them are his, to be honest with you. Because then after that, she gets pregnant again. And he has my Uncle Bobby. They had my Uncle Bobby. Now, my Uncle Bobby looks a lot like him, but me and Uncle Bobby are spitting image, and I don't share no blood with that man. Me and Uncle Bobby, you put us in a lineup, and it looks like a before and after, like an age difference. We look a lot alike when we're young. We look a lot alike the older I get. I think we look like McBrides. That's Granny's people, and McBride genes are strong, man. We got a bunch of them. I'm not 100% sure any of them turned out to be his. I'd sure be surprised if any of them did, because I know for a fact 3 of them ain't. And he goes back to Dr. Jack. He goes back to Dr. Jack. Dr. Jack snip again. That's what I was at. 3 vasectomies, and then boom, they have the youngest. That woman was a mess, bro. She run that man through the ringer. I know he run her through too. I know he was. We called him a rounder, you know. He liked drinking some beer and shooting some pool, and chasing some gals. We knew he wasn't no angel. But my Lord, boy, the man went and got his nuts cut up like 4 times. Still ended up with 5 kids. And I'd sure be surprised if we ever found out for sure that any of them were his. I would be so surprised. I don't even know what I believe anymore. My grandmother has lied so much about what happened and who was who. I finally got her to tell me about Raymond Harris years ago, but she was about half lit when she told me uh, who it was, and I already kind of had my suspicions, but I had a DNA test come back, and I link up as a first cousin for everybody in the Harris family. So it's pretty clear that that's the only time she's telling the truth is Raymond Harris, my granddad. But like I said, he's a piece of shit, so we're not going to waste a lot of time on him. He was a hard man. I only I only remember ever. Why is that even in there? It's junk. That another time. I need a little big screwdriver. That's a chisel. I only see my papaw cry. Uh, two times. Two times I seen my papaw cry. One time, I'm going fishing with my brother, and this reel ain't been used in about, I don't even want to honestly tell y'all how long it's been since I've used this reel. Too long. I'm gonna tell you, it's all gummed up. I'm gonna take it apart, clean it up. I seen him cry twice, so both times Merle Haggard songs. One time is I told y'all he used to have the El Camino, and we was running out to the lake in the El Camino, and that Merle Haggard song called Silver Wings came on. And he got kind of quiet. He'd been kind of chatting with me. He got kind of quiet and just listening to the song. And then towards the end of the song, I could see he was weeping, keeping it to himself, but definitely crying. And I always wondered what that's about. I told you he served in the Army. Did he have a friend that didn't come? It's not like he was like in wartime or anything, but did he have a friend that something happened to? He didn't make it back, Like I'm wildly curious to know why he cried about that song. Was it, or did he just like Merle Haggard, Merle Haggard just know how to get him in the fields. Never know. Never know now for sure. A little alcohol there. And the other time I seen him cry is that song "Branded Man" by Merle Haggard come on the radio, and boy, he just bawled, man. I could tell he was like shaking and really worked up about it. And boy, I sure always wondered. I was too young. Yeah, you're young like that, they don't want to tell you what they're upset about. I was just a kid. But I always wondered what got him all worked up there about old Merle singing them songs. Maybe the man just loved Merle Haggard. That ain't no crime for sure. Who don't love Merle Haggard? Personally, I get all weepy when that "Looking for a Place to Fall Apart" song comes on. Papa loved music. Papa had a friend way back in the day, and I hope I get this name right, but he's a fellow by the name of Sonny Spradlin. Sonny Spradlin had a bunch of money and big old farm, but the real cool thing about Sonny Spradlin is, for whatever reason, Sonny Spradlin was friends with just about everybody in country music. So you went over to Sonny Spradlin's house, my papa met all kind of people. The Statler brothers might be hanging out. The Oak Ridge brothers might be hanging out. My papa hung out with Oak Ridge brothers a couple times. Took me out there one time, and I think that's where we were. I don't really remember if that was out Sonny's, but my papa, I think it was in Shreveport that papa took me. But for whatever reason, turns out papa knew Andre the Giant. And, well, I'll never get all that back together. Oh, yeah, well, I know exactly how that goes. Excuse me. Well, I have to find that when I'm done. I lost that little spring there. Yeah, I remember I didn't know really who Andre the Giant was because I didn't watch wrestling yet at that time. But I remember when I saw him years later at my friend's house on the TV, I about flipped my shit. I was like, I know him. And then when I saw him in The Princess Bride, I really freaked out. But I remember how small he made my papa looked standing next to him, and then he put his hand on top of my head, and his fingers went all down around like he could have just picked me up by the head. He's a big old hoss of a man. I'm sure you know if you're a fan. I always thought that was pretty cool. That for whatever reason, Papaw knew frickin' Andre the Giant. Is that a keeper in there? Boy, it's been a good reel. Old Mitchell. Should have caught a mess of fish on it. My buddy Daniel gave me this reel a long time ago. I think the parts of Papaw I missed the most were he made every day fun. If you're with him, y'all are gonna go do something fun. You know, y'all gonna have a good time. I mean, he whipped me a couple times when I was acting up and done things I ought not. But he wanted to make every day. He wanted to be better than yesterday. And I've seen all the pictures, him and Granny and my daddy and all them people, and Uncle Bobby. And they built that wrecking yard shop from nothing. Big old plate steel and steel pieces. Who knows where he got all that steel? I don't know when he bought the land, but they had that land, and I've seen pictures. It was just a pretty little piece of land, you know, but it wasn't long before they started filling it up with stuff, you know. And Papaw for a long time had the janitorial position up at the school, up at the Leverage Chapel School, and boy, anything that wasn't nailed down, he didn't think they needed to keep. He just dragged on the junkyard. There was all these little tin sheds out there that the Leverage Chapel School used to use for storage, and Papaw just loaded them up on a trailer, brought them home, full of books, old textbooks and stuff. I used to dig through them when I was a kid. They had one of them set up. They'd keep all the car titles in there. And he had one of them set up, had all the mechanic books and such. And little buildings around the junk around the wrecking yard. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff from that school out there. Somewhere he'd come across a bunch of big old, man, I'm telling you, stuff was like an inch thick if it was a millimeter. Big old plate steel. And that stuff was just laid on the floor of the shop and laid on the floor of the driveway. And I don't know if you've ever laid down your back and worked on a car laying on a piece of plate steel. It get hot. He was real good with cars. I've told y'all this before, but he could time an engine by ear. I've seen him do it. He's the only person I've ever seen. I've heard a lot of people say they could do it. I thought I must have known how to do it by osmosis one time, but no. That is a learned trait, and that old man could listen to a motor and tell you if it was off time, and just as quickly set that Sun 50 right back up and get it back on time. He had a real knack for automobiles. My dad credits him. My dad says that he's the guy that taught him a lot about cars. He's the reason he learned a lot of the stuff he did, you know. And I seen tuners. I remember one time I was a little bitty old thing. Just, man, maybe 4 or 5 years old, something like that. Papa and Daddy had set up they were pulling engines out of the junkyard car, see which engine was good. And they pulled this old 352 out of a Ford Galaxy. Had it set up on wood, 5-gallon bucket antifreeze, some gasoline, another bucket. Had this thing set up and they test fired running it on the stand. Papaw was standing over and he'd let off, he'd do this poop, 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 off in the motor. I remember him and my dad talking about it. What's that sound? I don't know. Well, I don't sound right. And I was playing a little ways away with my trucks and stuff on the floor of the shop. And my dad was walking back into the shop, grab a broomstick so he could take that broomstick, stick it up against that motor, hear where that sound's coming from. About that time, Papaw racked that 352 one more time. Ah, bam! And it blew the valve covers right off the engine, the oil pan off the engine. The valve cover hit Papaw in the ear. He had a big old boil where that thing hit him in the ear. But blew stuff apart, fire everywhere. What happened, they found out after they dug off into it, them old mechanical fuel pumps that Ford used back then on them FE engines. If that diaphragm started going bad in that fuel pump, it would dump some of that fuel off into the crankcase. Well, this thing, every time he revved it up, was sucking fuel and dumping fuel off in the crankcase, and that sound they was hearing was little bitty mini explosions in that crankcase. I mean, it was loud, you know, till he finally dumped enough fuel and got enough vapor down there for the power stroke. And power stroked them valves right off that FE352. They built that wrecking yard up from nothing, and a wrecking yard was right on Sexton Road, right off the side of it, and then run up behind the school up through the woods. And you go down Sexton Road, there's a little dirt road down there, and that went to Granny and Papaw's house. And then there's a trail through the wrecking yard, and then there's one big road through the wrecking yard. They used to get stuff in and out of the shop, and then our house was on the side of that road and off Sexton. It's an empty lot now. Ain't nothing there now. Our house got burnt down. But when I was a kid, my backyard was into the wrecking yard. That picture, if you go back sometime, you watch the intro video to the wrecking yard, and the very last photo is a picture of me on my bicycle, and there's a big old C60 Chevrolet Viking back there behind me, winch truck, and that's the road. That's the road that went between our house and the rest of the wrecking yard. And then the shop was right behind our house. So, when I was playing back in the backyard as a kid, I was right there with the guys, with Papaw and Uncle Bobby and Dad, and I was part of all, and they'd bring me over there to hang out with them. All along our back fence was nothing but motorcycles. They were almost all Honda 500, Honda CB motorcycles. Must have been about 30 of them in a row in various states of disrepair. Papaw really liked them Honda motorcycles. See, that's the way the wrecking yard was built. Was built because he had some weird eccentricities. I can't say that word. You know what I'm talking about. He had some weird eccentricities. And that's what made his wrecking yard so special. Was he would get in these weird phases where he would just be buying one kind of thing. Like them motorcycles. He had all them motorcycles out there. What you gonna do with the motorcycles, Papaw? Oh, I reckon I might fix them up one day. Reckon I might sell them. I told you, I thought it was called the wrecking yard because he said wrecking all the time. He hated snakes in the wrecking yard, right? So if he was out driving around town, especially if he's in that old bread truck, and he saw a stray cat or a stray dog, and he could get them to come to him, boy, he'd just bring them on home to the wrecking yard. They'd feed them out there in the wrecking yard. Them cats would keep the snakes going. He didn't like snakes. Them cats would keep them snakes hidden and away from him. He always said, I know they're there, but I don't like seeing them. Them cats keep them from coming out. He had all kind of crazy shit. He had an attack donkey one time. A donkey that would kick the shit out of wolves and coyotes, and just a mean son of 50. He was a weird bird, man. Right out in one part of the wrecking yard, if you went around from Granny's house on the other side of the fence, they had a big old corrugated tin fence around their house. Granny didn't like having to look at the wrecking yard. And on the other side of that fence, on one side, there was that little German go-go mobile I used to hang out in. And then there was about 8 1975 to 1979 Subaru GLs. I don't remember them. They were just they were a little subcompact car that Subaru released in the United States in the mid 70s. Papa drug one up. Granny really liked driving it. And so then Papa went and bought about 6, 7 more, just having for parts. That's one of the times he whooped my butt. I had me a little Daisy Red Ryder BB gun. And I'd go out in that wreck yard and, shoot old vacuum tubes and look for stuff to put BB holes in. How you are with your kids. Stick a shotgun. Every once in a while I find a shotgun shell and stick it in their ant pile and go line up, shoot that shotgun shell primer, blow the ant piles up. Don't do that, kids. That's super dangerous. Do not do that. Do not. Just forget I said that. I just was talking too freely. Good Lord. The censor's going to come for me. Yeah, I didn't have, I didn't have a lot of parameters out there. Well, I learned about one of them one day. I was playing with that BB gun and I shot one of the windows out of that Subaru. And when I shot that window out of the Subaru, I knew I was in trouble. And I sure wasn't going to run home and tell Papa nothing about it. I guarantee you that. And it was about a couple days later. I think it was like a Saturday. And he went out, walking around the junkyard looking for something. And he got out there and he seen that Subaru window with that BB pock in it. He called me out there. He said, Boy, you been out here shooting my Subaru up? No, sir. I think that must have been them other kids from up the hill. Them other kids don't come down here and hang out down here. Boy, did you shoot that BB gun? Did you shoot that? No, sir. He said, I'm going to give you one more time. You lie to me again, I'm going to whoop your butt. He gave me one more time, and I immediately lied to him again. And I'll never forget the quickness which had happened. He picked up a pine log, like a pine stick like this big around, and he went to hit me with it, and it was rotten. It broke, and so then he picked up another one, and he hit me in the ass with that one, and that one broke too. And he was just getting madder. Boy, he whooped my butt. He said, you lie to everybody else. You don't lie to me. And I didn't lie to him no more after that. We had an agreement. I could pretty much tell him whatever I wanted to tell him. As long as I wasn't lying to him, he wanted to hear the truth, Try to be like that with my own kids. Like, just tell me whatever dumb shit you did. I'm cool with it. We'll figure out a way to fix it. But please don't lie to me and make me look like an idiot when I go defend you. Neither mine are too bad about it. Or they've just done a whole lot of shit I don't know about. One of the two. Well, I know I've had this thing far before, and it was not this much daggone work. Well, I may have to look up the instruction manual on this 50. Remember how to get it apart. Sure don't want to come. But he had a lot of crazy stuff he was into. He wore the same thing every day. So later on, after he worked for the janitorial at school, he set this aside. I might look that up and figure out. Probably should have looked it up before I got online and started tearing it apart. We'll figure it out. But he wore the same clothes every day. If you saw Papaw Clark, Bobby Eugene Clark. He was wearing a little Flaherty welding hat. Told y'all he liked those hats, and he always had him on their light blue Dickie work shirts from Etex Welding, where he worked during the day. Etex patch, Bobby over here. Y'all did sleeves rolled up right here. A couple gold rings on his fingers, gold bracelet, a watch. Had a few tattoos from his time in the Army. He wore them dark blue Dickie work pants. When he was at home, he had slip-on shoes, and when he was at work, he had just like your old Red Wing work boots. Usually had the pants tucked into the boot. He was out in the wrecking yard doing something. And I'm kind of like that too. See, that was Papaw's uniform. That was the clothes that made him feel good. That's the clothes that made him feel in charge of doing what he needed to do every day. And that's what he liked to wear. That's what he got up every day. He knew what his uniform is. I'm very much the same way. I wear a lot of the same clothes every day, and I got 3 or 4 outfits. You don't see me in a bunch of dazzling, look at me, Diamond Jim type shit, unless I'm wearing my suit. But I got a uniform that I wear. I got a uniform that I wear every day that makes me feel good, and I think a lot of that comes from him. He's always getting on me in the wrecking yard about walking with my hands in my pockets. And this day, you never see me walk with my hands in my pockets. He said, boy, you're going to trip on something. You're going to bust your head open. Keep your hands out of your pockets. He saw me walk with my hands. Get your hands out of your pockets. You're going to get snake bit. You're going to get something going to happen to you. You got to have those hands ready. He hated snakes, boy. There was one time let me tell you a little more about what he had in the wrecking yard. Sorry, I'm getting off topic here because I just like talking about it. He had golf carts from the 60s, from the 50s, like old Cushman golf carts and stuff. One day he showed up with a trailer, about 15 golf carts on them, dumped them out there in the wrecking yard, fixed one of them up, put him an air horn on it off a diesel with a little bottle, and he'd drive up down the street and Sexton Road blowing that air horn at people. That's his favorite thing. Drive up down Sexton Road, look, see what everybody else had in their yard. And one of his good friends lived up there by the school, a man named Jack. Jack and Charlene lived up there by the school. And him and Jack were stealing stuff from each other left and right all the time, ripping each other off on deals. And he had a bunch of El Caminos, had about 3 or 4 El Caminos at one time. He had a 5-window Apache pickup out there that was right behind Papa Wiley's house. And I used to play in that 5-window Apache pickup, having no idea how valuable that truck is now. I would sit in that truck and play all day long. Boy, I sure wish I could get my hands on that booger now. I think that's one of the first ones Granny sold for nothing. That's what happened most of the wrecking yard. She got, after he died, she got off into the gambling so bad. She basically blew through all their money and his Social Security and all that shit. And then she would go get signature loans in town and go use it, go gamble and try to win her money back and not pay her property taxes and stuff. And then she would start selling off pieces of the wrecking yard. Then she sold off most of the land and most of the cool junk for nothing, pennies on the dollar. So she could keep going to Shreveport and go on them boats and playing them freaking nickel slot machines. I mean, you got to work to lose all your money playing nickel slot machines. Like, that takes time. She was spending time at the casino. There's a big old wooden boat out there where I told you where my mom's car, where the Super Beta was. Well, there was a bay window Volkswagen bus, and that was my hangout. I've told y'all about that. I could sit in that bay window bus and look out over the whole wrecking yard, top of that hill. There's a big old giant wooden boat out there, big old wooden lake yacht. And I found out it belonged to my Uncle Charles. And my Uncle Charles was giving up his lake lot out at Lake Palestine or something. They said he couldn't leave the boat out there no more. It was in some disrepair. And Uncle Charles told Papaw he could have that boat. And boy, Papaw and my daddy run out there with an old 62 C10 Chevrolet pickup with a 6-cylinder and pulled that lake lot home while it was storming. And then they parked it on that hill, and me and my buddy Nathan, we would play on that thing all the time. We were we're on a boat. We didn't have no cameras, bro. We had an 8-track player, a portable 8-track player. We were listening to Elton John, so whatever, it might have been the wrong kind of boat. But that old boat's disintegrated since then, but it was right out there by my mom's car. It's wild as shit. There's one spot over by Papa Wiley's house that was nothing but cabinet TVs stacked up tall as a fence. Must have been about 20 of them. I don't know why. I don't know if he was buying them used. They break. He just stick them out there in the regular yard. The other move he did, we found out after he died, my dad and mom went up there to work on the house for Granny. The plumbing was all messed up. My dad starts trying to figure out the septic tank and figures out that what Papa was doing for a septic tank was just burying an old oil drum. And when the oil drum would get full, Papa just go bury another old oil drum. Boy, they had to get an excavator out. They must have dug up about 8 oil drums full of crap, full of decades of crap. My family. They were just, He worked that little job at Etex Welding right during the week. And he'd give that paycheck. I know they had that land mortgage at some point. I know they paid it off, but they had them a little Jim Walter style home there that was in pretty good shape when I was a kid. And he would, every week, he would come home from work and he would give Granny that paycheck. Granny would take that paycheck, go put it in the bank. She'd pay all the bills and all that stuff. And then the rest of that money is for Granny to use to take care of the kids. He didn't keep none of that. But he was always wheeling, dealing on the side, and he always had him an Avon money clip, a gold Avon money clip. About $3,000 or $4,000 in that money clip. So he was always buying and selling and flipping and doing his thing. Playing pool tournaments, hustling folks, playing poker. He'd drop that paycheck off, he'd go to the bar. I remember several times as a kid, and owner of some bar would call, and Granny get me in the car, and we'd go in town, go to the bar, and pick Papaw up. He'd be drunker than a boiled owl. And maybe gotten in a fight, hollering at somebody. One of my favorite stories about my Papaw Clark is over there in Kilgore used to be this little bar called Miss Katie's Bar. And Miss Katie was a handful, brother. She was a tough old bird, old barfly, right? Miss Katie had a big old plate glass window in front of that bar. Papaw and another old boy getting in an argument about a pool game one night, getting a little bit of fist fight, and Papaw picked that son of 50 up and throwed him right through that plate glass window, right onto the front sidewalk of the bar. Now, I don't know when that happened. I know it was sometime in the 80s. Miss Katie had her piece of plywood put up to cover the window. Five or 6 years after my Papaw died, I'm bumping around Kilgore with Uncle Bobby. He said, man, there's a poker game over at Miss Katie's this morning. Let's go over there and jump in on the poker game. So we run over Miss Poker. It's not really a poker game. We played a game they call 31. 3-card poker. It's just a bar game. If you ain't heard of it, just ask an old person. They'll teach you how to play it. If you know a boomer or something, just ask them. They'll teach you how to play it. It'll probably take a bunch of your money. Because you put money in the pot and everybody plays. And fun little bar game. Good way to win yourself $30, $40 on Sunday morning. So we go over to Miss Katie's, played 31. Miss Katie's dealing the cards. She said, Bobby, who is that boy with you? Everybody's calling Pooh Bear. Bobby said, that's Sherry's son. That's Sherry Kay's kid. Well, that's your little nephew? Yes, ma'am. Nephew, how's your Papaw doing? He'd been dead for 6 years. I said, well, he ain't doing too good. She said, well, next time you talk to him, you tell him I'm still waiting for him to come fix that plate glass window. I said, Miss Katie, he died about 6 years ago. She said, that son of a bitch. She's still mad at him. Son of a, she's still waiting on him to come fix that plate glass window. He had a funny way of wording stuff. He said, "Boy, I'm hot about that." If he was mad, "Boy, I'm hot about that." Ooh, I'm hot about that. He called my granny's name was Reba June McBride, and he called her Reba June. Reba June, boy, I'm hot about that. Reba June, if you don't quiet them kids down, Reba June, if you don't keep that boy from crying, I'm gonna come in there and give him something to cry about. I mean, he had a way of putting things together. He he called Kool-Aid. He only drank he liked purple Kool-Aid and he liked red Kool-Aid. And he called one of them purple Polypop and the other one was red Polypop. And grape Polypop. He called it grape Polypop. Yeah. Grape Polypop and red Polypop. And that was his favorite things, having a little Kool-Aid when he got on work. Give me some of that grape Polypop, Rip June. Rip June, go in there and give me some of that grape Polypop. He was old school. He'd come in, sit down in his chair, and she'd come take his shoes off, and he'd kick back in that recliner, and he'd watch Clint Eastwood movies, and Smokey and the Bandit, and whatever other movies she had done recorded for him on VHS, and old Heartbreak Ridge, and war movies, anything with Clint Eastwood in it. And I saw a meme the other day. It made me laugh. They said, "This is how you knew when it was time to go to bed as a kid if you're a Gen Xer," and they played the MASH theme. And honest to God, that's how every night ended at that house, was watching MASH with Papaw. Boy, he'd roar laughing at that show. He thought that was funny as shit. He liked Hee Haw too. We'd watch Hee Haw a lot together. Boy, I'm hot about that. Boy, I'll come in there and put a knot on your head. That was the other one too. He wouldn't say horse shit. He'd say horse hockey. What horse hockey? Chicken shit. It was chicken shit and horse hockey. I was like, why do you say chicken shit but not horse shit? Horse hockey. Boy, well, that's a bunch of horse hockey. Oh, I saw that little white stuff on top of chicken shit. It's still chicken shit too. You know, just had all these little things. I heard that in there was a movie of George Strait, and the grandpa said something like that, and I about fell out of my seat when I was watching, because the only person I ever heard say that was my Papaw Clark. That little white stuff on top of chicken shit is still chicken shit. I seen him and my daddy got real hot with another one day. I just remember I happened to be in my room when he called, and he answered the phone. He had a big old voice. I could hear him on the phone. But he said, "This my son-in-law?" Dad said, "Yeah." My dad and Granny had it out. They'd had an argument, and Dad had laid into her. He said, "Well, I heard you made an ass out of yourself today in front of my wife." And my dad straight up bowed right back up to him like a man and said, "Yeah, I was pretty hot, such and such." Told him the story. And after that, they were cool. He knew it was his duty to call and say some shit. But then when my dad told him how my granny was acting, he knew she was crazy. He said, all right, you gonna stand up for yourself. I guess I ain't gonna give you no more grief. Now, they used to do a thing out of Lake Tyler where you could lease a lake lot, and it was like a 99-year lease, and it was real cheap. And the part of Lake Tyler we were on was real cheap. They didn't have money, but he had junkyard stuff, and they leased this old lake lot, and he bought little old wooden. Lake Tyler used to have these little wooden barges with styrofoam pontoons underneath. Usually had a little old outboard motor in the middle through a hole in the floor, and they would ease around. It's kind of like the pontoon boats now, but way less sophisticated. You know, they're just big old styrofoam pontoons. It's just a wood square frame, and they'd cruise around the lake in that thing, you know. And then eventually they built a little fence around it with a little gate so the kids didn't fall in the water. And then, but once they had that lake lot, Papa would spend just about all his time at that lake. He liked to sit out there on that barge at night. This is his favorite thing. I ain't saying it's right or wrong, but he'd sit out there with a BB gun and shoot the turtles on the back when the turtle would stick his head up out of the water, and Papa would aim right behind him and shoot him in the back on the shell. And he liked to sound that BB, pip, off that turtle shell, and then the turtle would go under. He'd laugh for a minute and wait, sit there with his binoculars and he always had the scanner going, had them binoculars, and he'd look out across the lake and mind everybody else's business, check out the girls on the boats, look for turtles to shoot at. But he was calm out there by that lake. In fact, after he had his first heart attack, the doctor told him that he needed to find a way to de-stress. Like he was too stressed out, and Granny got him an aquarium, filled it up with those little guppies, those little neons and stuff like that, the Walmart aquarium. And he'd sit in his chair, he'd watch him fish in that aquarium. Well, the second time he had a heart attack was because Granny did something to the water, and he was sitting there watching all the fish in the aquarium, and they all started turning over and floating up, dying. And the old man got so worked up, they had to run him off to the hospital again. He loved being out at Lake Tyler. That was his spot. I like being out there with him. I spent all summers out there at Lake Tyler, diving, picking up fishing lures down by the fishing pier. In fact, I blew my eardrums out at Lake Tyler when I was a kid, and I just finally got my ears checked today and found out I do got a lot of hearing damage. I'm about to get me some hearing aids, so I'll be able to hear people when I'm on stage. I can't do crowd work because I can't hear people. But well, we had spent all summers out there. Like, even when he had that little box truck, he'd get off Etex Weld, and me and Granny would already be at the lake, and he'd head out there to meet us. And they had an old fifth wheel RV he got off somebody used, and they would hang out in that fifth wheel RV, and he would go down there and hang out on the lake all night. He didn't like fishing. He'd done all this stuff. He would, if I was having trouble catching fish, boy, you using the wrong size hook, and he'd go on down to the bait store, and he'd come back with the right hooks I needed. And he'd show me how to bait the hook, the right way. And boy, after that, I could catch him like gangbusters. He knew how to do all that stuff. He knew how to do all that hunting. He'd done all that stuff when he was younger. He just had no interest in doing it no more. Remember one night we was hanging out there. So where our lake lot was on Lake Tyler, right next to us, was another one where my nanny, she had got the lake lot next to them. But for a long time, it was empty, and the old barge there was like half sunk. But it was real shallow. It was just a little, it went off in a little cove. That's where all the water moccasins, at night you see the water moccasins swim out of that cove across the lake. You knew you wasn't supposed to swim after dark. That's when them water moccasins come evening time, they come out there. I seen him shoot. He carried around, it was a pearl handled, he loved guns. I have some of his guns. I have some Civil War guns that belong. He had a hell of a gun collection. Now, a lot of them got stolen and sold off by various family members after he died, and some of them before he died. But he had my Uncle Toby stole a mess of shit from him one time, all kind of guns and stuff. But he had that pearl-handled, nickel-plated, stub-nose 44 Magnum. I think it was a 44 Magnum. I seen him shoot many. He's pretty good with it. He'd shoot a water moccasin right in the head with it while it was trying to swim under the barge. And if he saw them water moccasins now, he'd no hesitation whip that gun out and shoot a couple of them. He liked killing them water. He don't like them snakes. And across that cove, there was a public area where the public could come do barbecues, hang out, and of course, on the weekends there'd be a lot of parties over there. One night, Papaw was sitting out there on the barge, and I was fishing. And we kept hearing, it sounded like a girl was hollering over there. Papaw picked up them binoculars. He watched what all was going on over there for a minute. And finally, I remember he stood up, and he put them binoculars down, and put his little welding cap on. He said, "Come on, boy, we'll get in the truck. We got to take a ride." Went out there and got in that bread truck. He fired that old noisy son of 50 up, pitch black out there in Lake Tyler, them little lake roads. He drives us over there to that public parking area where that party's going on. He pulls right up to the end of the road, right where they're all parked, parks that truck, shuts it off. We get out of the truck. We walk up. They got a little bonfire, a little campfire going. I didn't know enough at the time at that age to know that they were all drunk, but there was beer cans everywhere. And there's 2 or 3 girls and about 7 guys. And one of them girls was hollering as we were walking up, "Leave me alone. Leave me alone. I told you to stop that. Leave me alone." "Oh, I'm just playing with you. I'm just playing with you." Now, I was too young to understand what was happening, but I think it was about to be one of like that Jodie Foster pinball scene, you know. Bad shit was about to happen to this girl. And bad shit happened to girls even way more back then, unfortunately. Now, I just remember Papaw walked up. He said, "Boy, y'all sure are making a hell of a lot of racket tonight." One said, "Well, we're sorry about that. We turned the music down." He said, "I ain't the racket I'm talking about." And he looked over at that gal. And she said, "Sorry, sir." He said, "I ain't mad at you." And he looked over at that biggest boy, and he just real quick, he just pulled that pistol out of his pocket. He didn't point it at nobody. He just pulled that pistol out of his pocket, held it down there at his side. He said, "I don't know what y'all are planning with that girl, but I can tell you how it's going to end tonight." And he just had that gun out the whole time. And the boy said, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. Yes, sir." And he backed that biggest old boy up. He looked around at them gals. He said, "I think y'all probably need to get on the road." I remember them girls. That's the first time I ever saw them. It was Zuzu Amigo, but that's what they had. Them girls got in a Zuzu Amigo and drove off. While Papaw kept talking to them boys with that pistol in his hand. I don't know what he stopped, but it wasn't good. Whatever he stopped. And I hope that little gal in the Zuzu Amigo was thankful for his interference that night. She seemed like it. It was a magical place to grow up before I knew some of the bad stuff, but I was a runty little. Y'all don't know this about me, but up until about my sophomore year of high school, I was the smallest kid in class. I was the little bitty son of 50. I was the shortest, smallest, the frailest. Kindergarten class, there was only one person smaller than me. It was a little gal named Mitzi White, and she was a tiny little thing. And me and her were the 2 smallest kids in class. And it was like that for a long time. His But I was a runt. I was just a runty little bookworm gearhead. I just loved cars, and I loved trucks, and I loved reading. I'd read Greek mythology, all kind of stuff, man. Anything I get my hands on. Granny would go to the trades days and garage sales, buy books, whatever kind of books she was, and I'd read them all. Funny books, comic books, books about mythology, books about stuff I probably shouldn't have. I was reading Fahrenheit 451 when I was like 9 years old. You know what I mean? That's not it. Is that it? I probably screwed up the title of that. I was reading Ray Bradbury and Isaac Asimov when I was like 13 and 9 and 13 years old. You know, maybe that's why all the religion didn't take. His best friend was a guy named Maurice. He had Jack up the street, but his best friend, his brother in crime, was Maurice. I don't remember Maurice's last name. I think it was Tisdale, but I might be wrong. Oh, Maurice. Maurice had junk too. Maurice had a little more coin in his pocket. Had him a nice house over in Liberty City. He was also always marrying somebody. He went through some wives and stuff. But Maurice and Papaw would rob each other blind all the time. They just rip each other off all the time. I think they were still ripping each other. He was living on Maurice's land when he died, but I think they were still ripping. Maybe he went back home, but they were still ripping each other off. Maurice was like an extra grandpa because Maurice had a concrete pond we could go swim in when we went to his house. That's what they called her swimming, was a concrete pond, just like Beverly Hillbillies. I like going swimming in the concrete pond. I like Maurice always gives good treats. He's cool to hang around. But one of my favorite stories I ever heard, this ain't my story. This happened before I was born, but when my dad was kind of young, and my mom hadn't been married very long, my Uncle Bobby was 13, 14-year-old kid, 12-year-old kid. I was probably already born. Uncle Bobby was just a kid. And Papa, one day, he takes Uncle Bobby and Daddy over to Maurice's junkyard in town. And he pulls up behind the junkyard, and there's an old fence. He says, there's a hole under that fence on the other side of that fence. There's an old 73 Ford, I think it was a Ford Fairmont or something like that. Got a good FMX transmission in it. Everything else, the cross members done been cut out. Maurice won't give me that transmission, so what Papa told them was, he said, y'all go under that fence, y'all pull that transmission, y'all drag it under that fence, so it'll be easier to load in the truck from here. He said, I'm gonna go around the office and talk to Maurice and settle things. And y'all get done, come around to the office, I'll get you a cold drink. Well, Dad knew the deal. He didn't care. Papa and Maurice robbed each other all the time. He's just likely to be asked by Maurice to come help rob Papa next week. Dad and Uncle Bobby, they go up under the fence, they pull that old FMX transmission, they drag it under the fence out there by the road. And they walk around there. Of course, Papa and Maurice are sitting there, chewing the cud, bullshitting, telling each other lies. And I guess Uncle Bobby got impatient. He sat around waiting for that cold drink a little too long. And he finally said, Daddy, we done pulled that transmission, pulled it under the fence. You gonna get us a cold drink or not? Maurice just looked up, Bobby. Here come that Avon money clip. What you want for that? We used to call it fumbling. He'd take that money when he was trying to buy something. I still do this when I buy and sell cars nowadays. There's something about showing people money. It's a psychological trigger. And I'm just telling you, try it. If you don't believe me, try it. Next time you go to buy a car, and I'm not saying be a dick about it, but next time you go to buy a car, when y'all start getting close on price, or whatever it is you want to pay for that car, pull that money out of an envelope or pull that money out of your pocket and let them see that money. And you'll notice, if they're not an experienced seller, they ain't been doing it a long time. Now, they're so, look, John Clay Wolf, that son of 50 don't bat an eye. You pull out money. He don't care. He's seen it all. You know what I mean? But a lot of them cats, you pull that money out of your pocket, you start fumbling with that money while you're thinking, and you look at them, their eyes will be on that money. Papa used to do that fumbling good. I don't know if I got that much on me. He started fumbling with that money. And I've seen him buy cars that way. Guy want $800 for a car. Papa rack off $300 or $400 bills. Boy, you sure you can't? You sure you wouldn't take $400 for? I got $400 cash money right now. After you let that man look at that money for a little while, and it's a psychological trigger. Some people cannot turn it off. They see that money, they got to have it. I've done it so many times, buying and selling cars. I can tell you it works. I've had people try it on me because it's such an old trick. I know it works. Papa could sell you anything he had and make you feel like you robbed him. The price you got it. and he could buy anything you had, made you feel like you was robbing again for the price you was charging for it. He just knew that. He knew those triggers. He didn't know, I'm sure he didn't know the psychology of it, but he knew the way it worked. Him old Maurice, boy, they were tight. Thick as thieves, as they say. One time we was down there at Lake Tyler. I told you he didn't like snakes. I remember this when I was a kid. I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I was hip hopping down the street in front of Papaw and Dad and Granny and Mama. They was out. We was just taking a walk, going to look at other people's lake larks. I think we was going to look at a barge they wanted to buy, a newer barge. I was hop, skipping, jumping around, and I fell down the leaves. When I fell down the leaves, I looked up. There was a water moccasin in front of me. Now I'm gonna tell you, my little 8-year-old brain tells me it was about a foot away from me. I was in the death range. I was right there, looking this snake dead in the eyes, and it was coiled and up with its head up. And there was a good sized snake, and boy, I let out a holler and started rolling sideways in the leaves and flopping around trying to get away from it. And they come running because they heard me hollering. I was terrified of snakes. They hollering. Papa come running up there ready to just kill whatever got my way. When I said snake, boy, Papa turned white. Where's it? Where's that? It's over there. It's over there. Well, I reckon I don't know about that. It's over there in the little leaves. I remember him. My dad went and pulled a board off a picnic table, big old like a 10-foot board, and went over there looking for this snake, and they squashed the shit out of that snake. I mean, deader than a doornail. They weren't going to let that. I had a bunch of experiences with water moccasins out there. My Aunt Jan's husband, my Uncle Rolando at the time, Uncle Rolando's old Mexican dude. He's pretty cool, but he's always in trouble with the law for some sort of something. But it was real easy for a Mexican to always be in trouble with the law in East Texas back in 1980s, East Texas. Old Uncle Rolando, I was out there in that cove, wandering around that cove, and Uncle Rolando had been out there fishing, and he was just kind of walking around with that old sunken barge. And he saw the water moccasin coming for me before I seen it. But it was coming straight at me, and I was in about, shin deep water. And it comes straight at me just across that cove. And when I saw it, I froze. I was just holding my fishing pole. I didn't know what to do. And I just heard this holler, something in Spanish. And there come Uncle Rolando. He flew off the end of that barge with them snakeskin cowboy boots. And I don't know how you stomp a snake to death in shin deep water, but damn it, if Rolando didn't do it, he stomped that snake till there wasn't nothing left of that son of 50. It just floated up on the water. Well, I looked at him completely different after that. I've always had an idea to make some money. He always, he's always working, always scheming, always doing something, He decided to open him one time they opened up a junk shop. Well, one time they had a snow cone stand. They had a snow cone stand out there in White House, Texas, on the way to Lake Tyler. And then they had a little snow cone trailer they would drag around to events and set up. That's East Texas retirement plan, that snow cone stands and fireworks stands. He never did no fireworks, but he did them snow cone stands. My nanny had the fireworks stands. My Uncle Larry and Aunt Barbara had the fireworks stands. Redneck retirement there. They had the snow cone stand for a little while, and then they, one time there was a little old joint right there, right when you came into Kilgore on Highway 42, and had like a carport, and then I think it was like a little diner or something one point, or a gas station. Well, Papaw got his hands on that place, and they had a junk shop in the gas station. You go in there and buy junk, and then they had a barbecue trailer out there making barbecue sandwiches, barbecue and junk. Well, I'm telling you, like, I ain't even mad at it. It sounds like a great time to me. I was a kid. I hung out there all the time. I helped make barbecue sandwiches, helped sell barbecue sandwiches, help people load stuff in their car. Really, I always joke around, but if I could just be like, hey, man, I got enough money to retire the way I want to. My idea, I'm sure my wife won't go along with it. My idea is, and this is hoping Texas legalizes by then. God, please, 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 Texas. Somebody get that. Oh, anyways, I'm hoping they do it by then. Y'all making us miss out on money, Texas. Some of us could be making a little more money. But if I could pick my retirement plan, what my retirement plan would be was somewhere down on the Galveston seawall, or maybe somewhere in Florida, North Carolina. I ain't picky. I like beaches. I like being by the ocean. Somewhere on the seawall, somewhere, I'd like to have me a little old bicycle shop where I can make custom bicycles and work on folks' bicycles and rent bicycles for people to ride up and down the beach. Then I'd like to also sell them barbecue sandwiches. And I'd also like to sell them something else. I just have bikes, buds, and barbecue, baby. Be a good time, man. Be a good way to be old. Little place on the back where we can live. Nice backyard. I can just spend the rest of my days selling bikes, barbecue, and buds. JW's Bikes, Barbecue, and Bud. Diamond Jim's Bikes, Barbecue, and Bud. Boy, it sounds like a good place to be, don't it? Sounds like a great place to hang out to me. That would be, if I was picking mine, that's what it'd be. Said it. His eccentricities is what made Wrecking Yard a magical environment for a runty bookworm gearhead, and I had a magical time growing up there because of this wonderland he built of weird stuff. And that's a and Levis Chapel is kind of a strange place, you know. And one of the big things my papa did for me is I got bullied a lot. I told you I was a runt. I was the smallest kid. I got bullied a lot, and then when I got to high school, I was chubby. But right before he died, he came down to Houston to have a heart operation. And I'd gotten jumped by some kids at the high school and gotten beat up pretty good. Kids that were picking on me and bullying me. My papa, I remember he told me my lip was all swollen up, and the school counselor told my mom to pull me out of school a couple of days and go buy me some new clothes because apparently new clothes fix bullying. Apparently, new clothes fix when a bunch of 17-year-old psychopaths beat the piss out of you. Apparently, new clothes fix that. Because that's what the school counselor told my mom. I think you should take him shopping and give him some new clothes so he'll have more confidence. Yeah, I need new clothes to get ripped up and beat up in? Are you shitting me? Boy, if anybody ought to not have a job, that son 50 ought to been fired. But my mom took their advice. She bought me some new clothes. Me, her, and Papa went running around. I'll never forget that day. We went to the Transco Tower and we went up to the top of the Transco Tower so we could look all down Westheimer. Westheimer's the straightest street in Houston. That's what my papa said. He got up there. I remember the other thing he said that kind of stuck in my head, and he was standing out there and looking out them windows, all them cars coming up down Westheimer. He said, boy, they make so many colors for them now. He said, when I was growing up, they were just black or white. But boy, they sure come in a lot of pretty colors now. That looks like a great polypop coming down the road. My mom went off to find a bathroom. My papa pulled me aside. He said, I know what's been happening in school. I know what them boys did to you. Yes. He said, I know you're not bigger than I know they're bigger than you, probably stronger than you. He said, but when you got a bunch of, he said, the thing you got to learn, this first thing, there ain't no such thing as a fair fight. And next somebody does that to you or gets you in a position like that, you look around and you find yourself an equalizer. Whether that's a stick or a rock, you go Cain and Abel on them. You do what you got to do. And the other thing is when they do beat you up, because you're not going to beat 4 or 5 guys by yourself. You're not going to beat 3 guys by yourself. Don't ever let them see how bad it hurts you. He said, I've been watching you keep a stiff lip all day. He said, you keep doing that, nobody will ever be able to hurt you. Don't ever let them see how bad they hurt you. If you ever let them see how bad they hurt you, they'll never stop. If you can tough it out and make it look like they didn't do nothing to you, they're always going to look like chumps, and you'll be able to get through any situation. He also told me in that situation, hit the biggest and the meanest one first. Just like he went up to old boy that day. And it took a long time for that lesson to soak in. But until many, many years later that lesson soaked in and I put it to use. But it has changed my life. It has changed who I am. At some point, I stopped being a victim to bullying. I sure went through a bunch of it, but there was a day it stopped. And boy, the day it stopped, it ain't never happened again since. I can tell you that. There was a day it stopped. And it was all because of what he told me that day in the Transco Tower. He's a flawed man. He was abusive. I can tell you a million things about him, made him not a good person. But he was the grandfather I had. He was one of the grandfathers I had growing up. I didn't know all that then. And I don't really care about it now, honestly. Looking in the past and judging people, I mean, it's just, what good's it going to do you? Lose some love for somebody that your love don't have nothing to do with that? That's fine. I know he's not my blood grandfather, but he's my papa. That other man ain't shit to me. He's my Papaw Clark. I was his first grandchild, and he treated me like it. He always did right by me. Y'all have heard the El Camino story. I have a 38 revolver belongs to me. Because when he found out I wanted to join the police academy, he wanted to make sure I had a good gun. I think about him so much these days. With all this stuff I'm doing now. Whew! Boy, he'd be about it. It'd be like hanging out at Sonny Spradlin's again. He'd be following me to every gig. I guarantee he'd want to come meet everybody. He would be there for it. It'd be right up his alley. He always thought I was funny. Our kindergarten class in that little small community was weird, man. I got to tell you this. I went to Leverage Chapel Elementary, and my kindergarten class there was about 12 kids in, and none of us did anything. I've never heard a story about any of us doing anything normal. My best friend and compadre growing up was a little boy named Timmy Flournoy. And Timmy, boy, he's done the biker life and the 1% stuff, and been a tattoo artist, and been all over the place. Had a wild life. Another little girl that was in that class, boy, she went on. I think I know Mitzi still lives there. I've talked to her on Facebook and stuff a couple times, and I think she's about the closest one to living a normal life. But everybody, one of those kids is the weatherman now, and one of them kids teaches skydiving and jumps off mountains and crap. And one of them kids was a race car driver, got killed. One of them kids is one of them kids went out and kidnapped the mayor's son with her brother and ended up going to prison over after holding the mayor's son ransom. All of us did something. I ain't saying it was all great, but none of us that came out of that little group, that little community, turned out normal. We all turned out doing something off the wall. And I always wonder what that's about, Like why were we chosen to just be the weird ones? And I'm not in touch with any except Mitzi. Like I said, I've been friends with Mitzi online for a number of years. I had a bully back then, a guy named Joey Ware. Joey Ware was about 3 or 4 years older than me, and he was Well, I don't mind saying he was a piece of shit. He come from piece of shit people. He was a piece of shit kid, mean little derelict. And the only reason he was hanging around with our class because he flunked so many times they couldn't do anything with him. I had this little wiener dog named Sammy, little miniature dachshund. And if you know anything about wiener dogs, you know they can dig, bro. And that wiener dog was worse. We had a little lead chain for him, and we had a lead that ran all the way across the backyard, and he could run all the way up and down the backyard on that lead. Every once in a while, he'd figure out a way to get off that lead. He was a smart little booger. He'd dig up under the fence and go running around the neighborhood, go carousing. One day, he got off the lead and went running around the neighborhood. My dad said, "You go get that lead, you go find your dog." So I went walking up the street towards the school up Sexton Road with that lead and that chain, looking for my little wiener dog. Here comes Joey Ware. He's talking to one of the Hudspeth girls. There's a family called the Hudspeths up there. They had a couple of daughters that were pretty, and he was over there talking to one of their daughters. He seen me walking up the road, and I guess he was showing out for her. He come over there, he put his arm around me, but he always bullied me. He was always mean. He put his arm around me. And I don't remember what he said, but then he turned around and he punched me right in the nose. I hit the ground bawling, squalling. He walked off laughing. Picked up my lead. I went running back to the house crying and bawling. Came in the house crying, told my mom and dad what happened. Mom said, "You didn't stand up for yourself?" And Dad said, "You didn't stand up for yourself?" "Boy, you got to stand up for yourself. You can't let that boy do that. Never mind he's 3 or 4 years older than me and bigger than me. You got to stand up for yourself. Boy, you take that damn lead and you go up there and get your dog. And if he messes with you again, you don't stand up for yourself. I'm going to whoop your butt when you get back here for not standing up for yourself." I was terrified of my dad. I don't think my kids are scared of me, and I like that. I was terrified of the old man. I was always scared of him walking around on the eggshells. I don't know why that is, but I was. But he was loud and tough. But he told me, he said, "You let that boy whoop on you again, you don't do nothing about it. I'm going to whoop your butt with a belt when you get back here." Sure, in his mind, that felt like a good piece of parenting. I trudged back up that hill with that little chain lead for my dog. And turns out Jack and Charlene had my little dog up there. He'd wandered up in their yard and they knew whose dog he was. Papaw give me that dog. Maurice give me that dog. That come from Maurice's puppies. Me and that dog did everything together. That was the only other dog I ever had a friendship with, aside from our little Tina, our little Jack Russell we had for many years, that passed away a few years back. And I walked back up that road, still sniffling. Here comes Joey Ware again. Unbeknownst to me, somebody told Joey Ware he had to come apologize to me. He was coming to apologize, but I saw him coming. I saw red, and I took that chain, whooped the shit out of him with that chain. And I took my dog and ran back home. My parents asked me what happened. I said, he tried to mess with me again, so I hit him with that chain. Because my dad told me that first time, he said, "Boy, why didn't you hit him with that chain? Boy, why didn't you had a chain in your hand? You gonna let this boy whoop on you?" But I didn't tell my parents the whole story. I just told them I swung the chain at him, he left me alone. Jack Charlene had the dog, and I brought the dog home. 34 minutes later, car pulls up the driveway. Old beat the piss Ford Torino. And Joey's in the passenger side. His stepdad's in the driver's side. His stepdad jumps out of the car hollering. My dad jumps off the porch. "What's wrong with you?" He said, "Look what your boy done to my boy." Joey had welts all over him. My dad turned around and looked at me and said, "You did that?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Why'd you lie to me about it?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I didn't want to tell you. But you told me you was going to whoop my butt if I let him pick on me some more." And then his dad said, "Whoa, what?" My dad said, "Yeah, he punched him in the face earlier for no reason. And he's way bigger than him and all that kind of stuff." And old stepdad, "Oh, never mind. Sorry to bother you folks. I'm going to kick your ass." And jumped in that car and drove away. I heard Joey holler. I'm just kidding. None of that happened. I mean, the part where he punched me in the nose happened. And the part where my dad said, "If you don't go up there and stand up for yourself, I'm going to whoop your butt," that happened. But then what happened after that is I walked back up the street and Joey come out there and punched me in the face again. And I run back home crying again. My daddy whooped me with a belt. And then my mom and dad went and got the dog. But boy, I wish that other thing would have happened. It did years later to another guy named Nelson. But y'all heard that story. Nelson caught Joey Ware's ass whooping. Who knew? Last I heard Joey Ware, he was in prison or something. I don't know. I don't give a shit. I don't waste no energy on that. That's it. That's the story. I just wanted y'all to know a little more about the wrecking yard, a little more about Papaw Clark, and some of the eccentricities I inherited from him. I love little weird cars. I like weird stuff. I like collecting weird shit, and I like working on weird shit. And I think a lot of it comes from that man. Before we go, I got some stuff I want to talk to y'all about. If you got a minute, I know I've had you here for a little while. Told you guys last week I was going to do the Hot Wheels thing, and I wanted to share a little bit about that experience with you. You see my official judge shirt? I'm gonna wear this forever now. If you see me out and about, and this part of my new uniform, what's that? Something about Mobile One? Who cares? Hot Wheels judge. I don't get. I've been around celebrities. I've been in this business. Ooh, a while. But I don't really get starstruck. I don't get a lot of that. I joke around about it, but I just don't. You know, people are just people. People are just people. But I got starstruck at the Hot Wheels event. I ain't gonna lie to you. I met Brian Benedict. He's the man. He's the head designer of Hot Wheels. He's the man. And we instantly got along. Right off the bat, we got along. Real great. We did the event, which was a blast. The young man that won the event that day built this crazy. All he had was a door. All he had was a door off a BMW Izetta, and he coach built in 1,600 hours and I don't know 6 months this crazy little RV redemption vehicle. That's an RV. It's the neatest thing in the world. It's got a shifter is made out of a elk antler knife that his grandpa made him. That's the shifter. It's cool, man. Little boy put some. He didn't come by that win easy. He came by that win hard. And I fell in love with so many cars out there. There's a guy named Tom McCallan. Had something called the El Camino, and that's one of the prettiest El Caminos I've ever seen in my life. And it started out as a normal 64 El Camino, but when I tell you every line on that car has been touched and softened and rounded, and the details were immaculate. Him and his wife, after their kids moved out, decided to build this car together because they had that 64 El Camino when they were newly married. That sat for years once they had kids, and they built this car. Him and his wife one night after the kids was gone, they pulled out a list of paper and they wrote down all the things they would have changed about that car, and then they built it together. And she got to ride in it twice before she died of breast cancer. So down the pinstriping on the side of the El Camino, there's just one little thin pink ribbon, just subtly tucked in there, just for her, just for Mom. Beautiful machine. Jerry Delaportis was there, badass tuner. He used to be with Hennessy way back in the day. He's got his own shop now, Recoil Racing. The funniest thing about the Hot Wheels event, it was because I was a judge, I got to park in the judge section. Well, the judge section was part of the show because most of the judges have really cool cars. I don't. So Jerry Del Porto shows up with 5 cars, including a Blackwing Cadillac that will make your head spin. It is such a badass car. And he's got I think it's a 2018 Ford GT. Well, pretty sad. I'm making a video about it all, and you'll hear that car. That car had a good ass sound. He brought about 5,000 horsepower in cars to show off, and some of the other judges had nice car. The good dude from Hennessy showed up in a Hennessy Bronco Velociraptor, and it was parked right next to a 2012 Mazda 3, just a gray little Mazda 3. And all day long while we was walking around judging these cars and talking to these builders, I spent hours just talking to builders about their cars, which is just the best job I could ever get. I'll talk cars all day long. I spent hours talking cars. And I was partnered up with a guy from Mobile One. His name's Joel Tarver. He's really cool too, and he's a designer over at Mobile One. Me and him we got along real well. We had a good time. I enjoyed hanging out with Joel. He's a good dude, and he's a Houston native. You never meet a Houston native. He's a real Houston native, like born and raised in Houston. I've never met anybody that was born and raised in Houston besides my father-in-law. So it blew my mind to meet another Houston native. Everybody in Houston's from somewhere else. But all day long, me and Joel was walking around judging these cars. We'd walk by that Mazda, and there'd always be about 7 or 8 people over there looking around that Mazda, trying to figure out what was special about that Mazda. Is it LS swap? What is it? Does it got airbags? This old Mazda with yellowed headlight lenses. I say we caught one dude trying to look up under the hood of it. Just sure there had to be something special about that Mazda. Like, no, I'm just a broke judge. Just broke judge coming through. Broke judge. Broke judge. Oh, that was a good day. It was a time of my life. I've been invited to some really cool stuff as a result of my job. But getting to go be part of Hot Wheels, and a big thank you and love to Vinny Russo. He's one of the guys that works for the marketing agency for Hot Wheels and Forza, and he's the guy that was a fan of mine and turned to other people in his office on to me, and then got Hot Wheels to vet me and allow me to be a part of this. And hopefully I get to do some more stuff with him. I told you I was treating it like an audition. I worked all day long, and I networked hard. But I put this picture up. That's Brian Benedict. That's the lead designer of Hot Wheels, holding my Ford Torino that I used to carry around in my pocket when I was 9 and 10 years old. I mean, if I told you, we all went to lunch afterwards, hung out, had drinks and stuff, and networked, and then got home. We all start texting each other. I met a custom builder here in Houston named Justin Smith. Has a nice shop over off 290 and Jones Road, and he's extended an invitation for me to come over to his shop, maybe film some content, hang out one day. I'm going to take him up on that. All those guys. Jerry Delaportis was cool. I didn't get to talk to him a lot. Annie was cool. I didn't get to talk to her a lot. Joel was really cool. The head graphics designer for Hot Wheels was there. But I was starstruck by Brian Benedict. All I kept thinking all day long was, boy, if I could go back and tell 10-year-old Jerry Wayne in the regular yard that one day you're going to have the phone number of the head designer of Hot Wheels in your phone and be texting this dude on your porch, boy, he'd flip his wig. Don't you know? Don't you know? Ah! That little dude would flip his shit, man. That's the most starstruck I ever been, was meeting Brian Benedict, bro. Like, he's the guy got the twin mill built. Oh, that twin mill sounded good, son. So I'm hoping for future collaboration with Hot Wheels. I'm really hoping for more of that, because that event was a dream come true for me, and I just so hope to do some more. I did get a phone call, or not a phone call, text message from my people over at the World of Outlaws a couple of days ago, and we're planning for 2025. So I can tell you 2025 is going to be a lot more race events, way more than I did this year. And I'm sure hoping maybe I get to be a part of the 2025 Hot Wheels Legends Tour or continue to be a part of the 2024 one. Only time will tell if I made the right impression. But I sure put my best foot forward out there and tried. Aside from all that crazy stuff, I just want to tell y'all how that went. But we had some crazy stuff happen this week. Some of you follow me on Facebook. You know, I had somebody try to buy the podcast. And the contract, the wording was real vague, and I just didn't feel good about it. Told them no. Not that I don't need money. I sure need the money. But it felt good to be able to tell them no. This is mine. Whatever I do with this is mine. I'm glad I told them no, because within a few days, my manager, Rachel, says, "You're not going to believe this, but there's this book publisher is trying to get a hold of you. He wants to turn the Wrecking Yard into a book." And we've spoken to this man at length. My manager has spoken to this man at length, and they're making plans, and we're going to do it. I mean, it'll probably take 2 years to get it out and such, but we're gonna when I get finished with this part of the Wrecking Yard podcast, we're gonna make it a book. I think there's gonna be 20, 25 episodes. I got some stuff I really need to get through in these next few episodes. And one particularly entertaining story about me and Uncle Bobby going to see ZZ Top. I got to get through some of the later stuff with you guys, some of the work trucks. But I'm excited, you know. Like feels like things are going my way finally. Feels like some of this work's starting to pay off. I told y'all, it's all these little irons, all the time. You just keep putting these little irons in the fire. Boy, if I ain't got about 2 or 3 of them, it's ready to go. I'm excited about it. Be cool to be the first author in my family. Be cool just to tell people I'm an author. Have you read my book? Do you have any Grey Poupon? I don't know. Sounds like some shit an author would say. Oh, we didn't do no comments yet. Let's do some comments real quick. Man, so here's where I screwed up this week, guys. It has been... I did not pull any comments to look at, so we're just going to pull them on the fly. And see where we go. Let's see. There we go. Oh, our old friend, Cinnamon Girl 76. The age-old man versus beast trope. The odds are against a consistently positive outcome when mounting yourself on 1,000 pounds of one of Mother Earth's creatures that has a mind of its own. Beast wins. The horse should have been named Tori. Whew. Bro, Tori was a mess. Man, they should name rodeo bulls after Tori. That's what they should name. Tori would be a hell of a rodeo bull. Well, that girl, and this is the kind of thing, that was a hard thing to write for me because I had to really dig in there to figure out, I'm at peace now. I'm almost 50 years old. My wife has helped me find a level of peace in this world that I didn't know was possible. I don't have a lot of animosity towards these people from my past, even the ones that did me wrong. I know I should in some cases, but I just don't. I don't waste energy on them. I don't waste energy on Jeff McFerrin. I don't waste energy on these people that screwed me over. I don't waste energy on Paul. Y'all hear about him. I don't waste energy on these people that did me wrong. I don't. I don't waste a lot of animosity on them either. That was a weird one to write, to dig back through all that, honestly. This is at Nick Sears 1225. That whole episode with your knee was making me cringe. I blew up my patellar tendon a few years ago, and it was bringing back a lot of memories. Bad days do make good stories, though. I don't know what a propeller tendon is, but if I had one, I probably jacked it up too. But can I tell you that just listening to that story while I was editing it made my knee hurt right in that exact same space. And then when I was watching it live with you guys and I was in the chat, my knee started hurting again. Just listen to me tell that story. Let's see. At Stumphole8217, I got so damn tickled at running Satan off by farting. I ain't had a belly laughing too long. Y'all are the first people to ever hear that story. I've never told that story on stage. That's just an old me and Billy Colson story, and I've only told it to a handful of people, but definitely one of my favorites. This you. All right. Well, now we got audio back, but we didn't have audio for the comment section, so hope you could hear it. As always, I appreciate you sharing your Sunday with me. Won't be no reason for you guys to read the book because you're getting it all firsthand. It's like an audio book. Better. You get to see my pretty face. I do appreciate you giving up your Sundays to hang out with me for a little bit. I said before, I say it again, I'm rooting for you. I think there's room for all of us to sit at the table, no matter what your passion, whatever your thing you're pursuing is. You know, I told you I started this thing. I didn't have no plans on making it a book. I started this thing because I was trying to figure out what made me such a car guy. I think Papaw Clark was a lot of that. I think the time I spent with him made me appreciate cars the way I do. Definitely my dad was part of it. That wrecking yard played a huge part in it. There's no denying that. Anyways, I'm JW, and I love you. Oh, almost forgot. One more time. Jack Slavinka, his comics, track tales. Won't be including that giveaway. I'm gonna put the email address up there one more time. You email him your address. He's gonna send you some free comics that he's made, and he's trying to build a network so he can really release this comic series. And I think it's gonna be pretty good. So you should check it out, definitely. And also, don't forget to check out the Everyone Racers podcast. You guys are doing big things. That covers it, right? I got it all that down. Y'all just don't know. I've been fighting with audio and everything. Y'all seen some of it. Silver wings shining in the sun, roaring headed somewhere in flight. Boy, I'm hot about that.